Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Xiaolin Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 23 of Xiaolin Showdown, Dreamscape. And this episode begins, as most episodes of Xiaolin Showdown do, with the Xiaolin warriors trying to beat Jack Spicer to a new Shengong Wu. In this case, this Shengong Wu is an eagle statue called the Shadow of Fear. A Shengong Wu that allows whoever wields it the ability to enter other people's dreams and, well, steal their worst fears and weaponize them. And the thing is, the Shadow of Fear is located at, I guess, at a log plant. However, as the Xiaolin warriors are going to get it, they end up getting intercepted by Jack Spicer, who did beat them to the punch. And it turns out, throughout this entire episode, Jack is making a movie. Why? I have no idea. I guess he's just being extra conceited today. And as such, he's basically filming his fight with the Xiaolin warriors as if it was just an action scene for his film. And he manages to get the Shadow of Fear because just as he and Clay are kind of at odds with one another and both are waiting for the other to make a grab for it, well, he manages to hit Clay with a bit of stage fright as he gets his robots to, get him doused in makeup and throw a camera on him. And this causes Clay to end up just freezing up on the spot, allowing Jack to just swoop in and steal the Shadow of Fear and make a run for it. And unfortunately, while the Xiaolin monks do their best to try and stop him, it ends in failure. And while Clay is a little embarrassed for what he did, the other Xiaolin monks don't give him a hard time because, well, as we've seen before, they've all made scrolls before, and Omi assures Clay that he can just use this as fuel for the next time they go after a Shengong Wu. However, Omi, also being Omi, kind of makes claims that he doesn't have to worry about being afraid, especially when he and the other Xiaolin monks learn what the Shadow of Fear does. That he's a great and noble warrior, that he doesn't ever have to worry about fears, because he has no fears and all that crap, which he kind of demonstrates as he almost gets thrown off dojo and yet just keeps a smiling face when everyone goes to rescue him. It's, again, just Omi being obnoxious, but it's in character, so to speak. And I admit it actually does end up serving the plot later, as while the Xiaolin monks are training and Omi continues boasting about his fearlessness, Master Feng does give some solid advice. Namely that a great warrior is not someone who is without fear, but rather is someone who can face their fears, which Omi kind of brushes off or whatever, or at least kind of internalizes. But that night, as the Xiaolin monks go to bed and rest up, Jack Spicer ends up breaking into the temple in order to use the Shadow of Fear, which also brings me to one little thing that I've noticed. Remember how one episode ago I talked about how Jack Spicer may as well have a revolving door for the Xiaolin warriors at his place? Well, apparently the same can be said for the Xiaolin Temple, because I think this is the latest of quite a few times that Jack Spicer has just broken into the place. Like, seriously, where's the extra security? Isn't any of those nameless elder monks going to do anything? Or is it always the job of the Xiaolin monks to keep an eye out for Jack Spicer? Don't they at least have the door locked? I don't understand it. Point is, Jack Spicer's able to sneak in, and using the Shadow of Fear, he's able to infiltrate the minds of each of the Xiaolin warriors as they're sleeping, and they end up getting terrible nightmares as he essentially mines for their worst fears. As such, the next day, they're all able to put two and two together and realize that Jack Spicer invaded their dreams because of sleepless nights involving him in their dreams, and as such they realize that he's probably going to take advantage of their sleep-deprived state, as well as the fact that he has their worst fears, to try and attack the temple again in order to get some Shengong Wu. And Omi, while shaken, but still trying to keep up a brave front, says that he'll be fine. He has no fears that Jack can exploit. And as such, Master Feng immediately calls his bluff as he volunteers Omi to guard the vault, which what I kind of like is that throughout this season, every time Omi has made a boast about how better he is, or if he tries throwing someone else under the bus, Master Feng just kind of calls his bluff and puts Omi in the spotlight. I love it. But either way, Omi that night ends up guarding the vault, which for some reason is left wide open, even though we all know that there is a lock system involving the bells. But hey, what do I know? I'm not guarding these so powerful artifacts that could be the deciding factor in a battle between good and evil. And as a result, Jack Spicer ends up once again breaking in order to steal the Shengong Wu. Once again, while Omi tries putting up a brave front, well, Jack uses the Shadow of Fear again, and he essentially just brings Omi's worst fear to life, which we don't see what it is, but it's enough that it does cause Omi to just run off, which the Xiaolin monks end up hearing him running off, mostly because he screams, and sure enough, they do end up catching Jack as he's stealing a few Shengong from the vault. Thankfully, they manage to catch him early enough that they are able to stop him from grabbing more, but he does still get away with at least a handful of Shen Gong Wu. As such, the Xiaolin monks decide they need to go and raid Jack's lab so they can get their Wu back, but Omi is less than willing to go with, saying that he's got a bunch of chores around the temple that he has to get to, so he can't join them. Once again, his bluff is called, and the Xiaolin monks essentially drag him kicking and screaming to Jack Spicer's lab. And sure enough, once again, they just get in without any issues. However, Jack Spicer seems to have been expecting them as he has his camera crew all on standby, and he immediately activates the Shadow of Fear, bringing to life their worst fears as well. And in the end, they're a nice varied bit of fears. Nothing really too revealing about all of them, save maybe one, but it is stuff that does get under their goats. For Kimiko, her worst fear is a burnt-up doll called, I think, Pachinko? Hold on, I wrote it down, so I would like to, so I remember. Pochika, Pochika, that wants to give Kimiko a hug, even though it looks fucking creepy. Clay's worst fear is his grandma Lily, who apparently likes to, well, coddle her grandchildren to the point where she actually can cause bruising. Like, she likes to pinch cheeks so much that they can go numb, or she keeps kissing them to the point where it actually does bruise them. It's apparently she's not a favorite of her grandchildren. For the case of Raimundo, he's afraid of a jellyfish monster, and for Omi, it's a squirrel. Yeah, his worst fear is quite literally a squirrel. Hold on a second, Ginny came in. And as such, once the Xiaolin monks are confronted with their worst fears, all of them just go running out of Jack's lab, much to their embarrassment. As such, when they regroup back at the temple, Master Feng does let them know that they might need to be on their guard and try and think of strategies to counter Jack Spicer. And sure enough, they end up confirming that when Omi was in the vault that night, it was the squirrel nightmare that got him, as Kimiko managed to get one of the cameras from one of Jack's robots during a fight, and it had all the footage of the night that Jack Spicer broke in, which included Omi running for his life. As such, Omi is rather embarrassed about this, but he doesn't really have time to fester on his failure, as Dojo seems to be reacting as a new Shen Gong Wu has revealed itself. In this case, a vehicle called the Crouching Cougar, that, like the Silver Manta Ray and Tunnel Armadillo before it, is basically a traveling Shen Gong Wu. It's something that can grow. It's a Shen Gong Wu that looks like a cougar that can grow into a vehicle that's good for jungle travel. Kind of weird that there are a few Shen Gong Wu that are actually double as vehicles, but whatever. Either way, the Xiaolin monks make a run for it, but even they know that once they get there, Jack Spicer's going to unleash their worst fears again, so they need to prepare themselves. And in this case, they decide in order to counter Jack, maybe they should just swap fears. Because yeah, while they are personally afraid of these things, that doesn't mean the other monks are. And while Omi is still shaken about being afraid of squirrels, he does think that this is a good plan, and so once the Xiaolin monks reach where the Crouching Cougar is, which in this case is in a mesa on top of a large rock tower, Jack Spicer once again arrives on the scene and activates the Shadow of Fear, unleashing the Xiaolin monks' worst fears. And sure enough, them swapping fears does allow them to get some breathing room and actually put up a better fight than they had before. However, as this is going on, Wuya urges Jack to actually go and get the Crouching Cougar, much to his annoyance, because he's still more concerned with making his stupid movie. But as he flies for it, the Xiaolin monks see him going and immediately try going after him to try and get the Crouching Cougar first, which in turn causes their fears to go after them, and before Jack can even lay hands on the thing, the Xiaolin monks and their fears end up reaching the top of the tower, and all 8 of them end up making a grab for the Crouching Cougar, which in turn sparks a Xiaolin showdown. In this case, this is a new variant of the Xiaolin showdowns called an 8-way Xiaolin showdown. Basically, much like the Xiaolin Showdown Tsunami, this one is basically a showdown involving 2 teams, 4v4. Every member, like with Tsunami, everyone involved with the Xiaolin Showdown wagers a Shen Gong Wu, and whichever team comes out victorious wins the entire grab bag. And as such, for this particular Xiaolin Showdown, and I do need to pull this up because it's a lot of Shen Gong Wu, so I wrote them down, the Xiaolin monks wager the Silk Spitter, the 2-ton Tunic, the Shroud of Shadows, and the Lotus Twister, while their nightmares end up wagering the Fist of Tebigong, Eye of Dashi, Serpent's Tail, and the Third Arm Sash. And the challenge, which is for some reason decided by Jack, is basically just a sumo wrestling match, with each Xiaolin monk facing off against their worst fear, and whoever gets knocked out of the ring is a loser. As such, with the parameters set, a Xiaolin showdown is declared, and the rock mesa that everyone is standing on immediately just rises up into the sky, practically in space, which something that I genuinely liked that gave me chills when the showdown was basically being created was that as it was happening, we got flashes of all the Xiaolin monks' worst fears. And considering that these things are meant to look a little bit creepy, it actually does create a sense of, honestly, subliminal fear as you see the monsters there. It's almost like they're chomping at the bit to fight their respective fear owners. But either way, a barrier of light surrounds the field, and literally everyone that's taking part in the showdown ends up turning into a sumo wrestler. I'm not even kidding. They all get fat, they all get big, they all end up getting jock straps and so forth. Any who need it and get the proper undergarments. Point is, Xiaolin showdown time, and just as Jack said, each of the Xiaolin monks end up facing off against their worst fear to varying degrees of success. However, Omi is the one that seems to start making some leeway, as while he's facing off against the squirrel, he almost ends up giving up as the squirrel manages to use the serpent's tail to fly right through him and start kind of laughing at him and seeming to take joy in his torment. But Omi ends up remembering what Master Feng said about facing your fears, and this does give him enough bout of courage to actually face this rodent head on. And sure enough, as the squirrel tries making a dive at Omi, he uses the power of the two-tone tunic to repel it, which in turn sends it flying out of the ring, and thus that's one down. And while such, one by one, each of the Xiaolin monks do end up overcoming their fears, as Omi and Kimiko manage to take out their respective fears by working together, and in the case of Raimundo, he manages to knock the jellyfish monster off balance enough so that it ends up falling flat on its ass, and when it gets back up, well, it stepped a foot right outside the ring, so technically it's out. And what I love is that just before it gets sucked right out of the ring, it actually looks like it's about to cry, so I kind of love that. But either way, the Xiaolin monks win, and thus they win the entire grab bag of Shengung Wu, much to Wuya and Jack's annoyance. Wuya especially, because she immediately just starts blaming Jack for this, which I guess kind of is his fault. He is the one that he is the one that set up the showdown, and likewise, if he had just grabbed the crouching cougar, he could have done this, but before he even got the chance, he wanted to try and get a good shot with the camera, so yeah, I'll give her that. She can blame Jack all she wants. But either way, the Xiaolin warriors got the crouching cougar and all the Shengung Wu that were wagered by their worst fears, and thus they all returned to the temple, feeling a little bit prouder of themselves for having overcome their fears. However, they do get a little bit of a bonus prize as well, because it turns out, while no one was looking, Omi managed to steal the Shadow of Fear from Jack Spicer, and to try and give a bit of karmic justice to the evil boy genius, he and the other Xiaolin warriors used the Shadow of Fear to sneak into Jack Spicer's dreams and learn what he's afraid of, and apparently his worst fear was toilet training from when he was a toddler. As in his dream, he is a little kid in footy pajamas being flushed down a giant toilet. This kid's pathetic. But yeah, that was Dreamscape. Quite honestly, a very creative episode. And if I can give some crap to the episode, admittedly, it's that for what it is and what it is plot-wise, what we learn of the Xiaolin monks regarding their worst fears doesn't really feel like anything is furthered. In that regard, let me put it this way. When someone has a worst fear, typically it's not just something as simple as, oh, this creepy ass doll or your grandmother. Although for some cases that could be a bit more nuanced, so maybe I'm just going overboard. But my point is, people typically seem more like irrational fears, things that we can be a little bit scared of, but ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, just only give us a fright rather than outright just hitting us right into our core. But with that said, I think what makes the episode work is that, one, the creativity regarding the worst fears. I like that we get to. It is kind of nice seeing the monsters that come directly from the Xiaolin monks' inner subconscious, and I'll give credit. The designs of their worst fears genuinely looked creepy. When Jack Spicer unleashed their fears on the Xiaolin warriors, they genuinely looked like these imposing monsters. When we saw Kimiko's fear, which in this case was the doll, it really just felt creepy because it had this cute little high-pitched voice as it came into view, and you saw that half of its face was burnt off and it was missing an arm, and it just kept saying, "Come on, Kimiko, play with me." It's like, ugh. That one's just kind of weird. In the case of Clay, when you saw his grandmother come into the fray, while she Like, she sounds sickeningly sweet in how she talks, but there's a tinge of venom in what she says, which makes sense, since this is Clay's personal perception of his grandmother. And from his perspective, this woman that probably genuinely meant him no harm was a terrifying figure just because of all the physical pain she put him through with her affections. In the case of Raimundo, a jellyfish monster makes sense. He is from Rio de Janeiro and he's a surfer, and so it makes sense why he probably would be afraid of jellyfish. And so to have a literal personification of those things coming out and trying to kill him, that would scare anyone. And in the case of Omi, I like that how his fear is... It's the most ridiculous. It's just kind of a nice bit. It's just like the biggest oxymoron that you could see, since Omi presents himself as this proud warrior who was almost not afraid of anything, and yet his biggest fear is squirrels. And admittedly, he has had experiences with squirrels, and even earlier in the season, he freaked out when he wound up getting a squirrel, and namely in this case, the Shard of Lightning episode, when the Jack Spicers wound up swapping out a Shengongu he was using for a squirrel. But likewise, it's kind of strange to see Omi, of all people, be afraid of a squirrel, which I guess makes sense, and that's probably why Omi didn't want to talk about it, because even he's fully aware that it's very irrational, and it's not something he wants to get into. But it's something that but at the same time, it still frightens him, and thus the shame of it combined with the irrationality of the fear kind of makes him a bit of a hot mess. So you can understand why Omi wouldn't want to talk about it. So I'll give you that. And like I said, the creativity regarding each of the nightmares and how they're designed genuinely works. So it does actually work. So it is something that I still like, and it is kind of fun seeing the Xiaolin warriors clash with their respective fear counterparts, if that makes any sense. So kudos on that. I guess if I want to get into another annoying thing, I guess Jack Spicer with the whole camera thing was a little annoying. Like, it just kind of felt like a side tangent that really was unnecessary. But again, the action I still think was pretty darn cool. And honestly, I think the moral for the episode was a pretty darn good one. In this case, it is mostly focused on Omi as a character, and while I will give some crap for how the Xiaolin warriors' respective nightmares really didn't feel like it revealed too much about their characters, I will still give kudos to the fact that I think the whole overcoming your fear lesson, it's a good one for children to learn. Is it a bit overdone sometimes? Yeah, admittedly. But the thing is, everyone has something that they're afraid of. Sometimes it's something big, sometimes it's something small. Sometimes it can be disappointing someone you care about, and other times it could be just a bug. It could be literally anything, and in our minds, it can turn these what could be innocuous situations into just straight up nightmares. But the thing is, everyone has those fears. Everyone has to deal with them. And it's how we confront those fears that helps us kind of grow as people. As Master Funk said, a great warrior is not someone who is without fear, it's someone who can face their fears. And I genuinely think that is a lesson that kids need to learn. To kind of go off on a tangent, one of my favorite superheroes is Green Lantern. Which one? Any of them. They're all good. Although, if I have to pick one, probably Jessica Cruz, just because she has social anxiety, and yet still is worthy enough to bear a Green Lantern ring, and I find that to genuinely be inspiring. But that's my comic book nerd side coming out. We're not talking about that. Let's actually get back to why I'm bringing up Green Lantern. For the Green Lantern Corps, a requirement that comes from being able to wield a Green Lantern ring is that the wielder has to have the ability to overcome great fear. It doesn't mean they have to be fearless. They just have to be able to face their fears. Every member of the Green Lantern Corps is someone who's supposed to be exceedingly courageous and can face danger, damn the consequences. And the thing is, all of them still have something they're afraid of. And in certain cases, that can be taken advantage of. As in the DC universe, the fear is associated with the color yellow. And in modern mythos, the modern Green Lantern Corps was originally supposed to be weak to the color yellow, but in the revised continuity, while they can still be weak to yellow, that's only if they give in to their fears. And in the comics, that has happened before. Just look up the Sinestro Corps War with Jack T. Chance. Trust me, it's not pretty. My point is this. Each of the Green Lanterns is supposed to be someone who can be courageous and can go into danger and damn the consequences. But that doesn't mean that they're invincible. So they are people who have fears but choose to face them regardless of the fear itself. They still want to charge in guns blazing, even if it means that they'll die, because that's just what it means to be a Green Lantern. That's what it means to be a hero. That's what it means to fight the good fight. It doesn't mean that you aren't afraid. It just means you're better at handling your fear. And some of us, yes, are better at handling it than others, but if we kind of want to get through this little game we call life, you do need to face your fears at least sometimes. And how we approach those fears depends entirely on the person. And learning to overcome them is something that is, yes, a bit of strength, but it's a fight worth fighting, if that makes any sense. And I kind of like that that's what we see in the episode, especially considering that the character that seems to be centered around all this is Omi. Now, because after all, as we've seen with Omi, he is a very arrogant and full of himself monk who tends to always value his abilities above everyone else's. It doesn't mean that he disvalues their abilities, it's just that he's kind of got a big head on his shoulders because he's been training the longest and has been the most dedicated to his craft. And yeah, that's even reflected in the episode too, as when Jack Spicer entered Omi's head, he was the only one whose dream we actually saw, and in his dream, it's literally just him training on top of a big statue of himself with echoes praising him while he's got long flowing hair going down his head. It's very egotistical and kind of amusing, but the thing is, for someone like Omi who prides himself on his dedication, being afraid is something that he does not want to be. After all, being a Xiaolin warrior means going into danger, facing insurmountable odds regardless of what could happen. So the fact that he is afraid of something, and not just any something, but something so insignificant and minuscule as a squirrel, it's embarrassing for him. And like I said, combine him knowing that the fear is irrational with the fear itself, and it makes for a hot mess. It makes for something that he does not want to confront. And the thing is, the more he tries to deny that he has this fear, the stronger it gets. And it isn't until Omi finally accepts, yes, I'm afraid of you, that he's able to stand up and face his fear head on, which I like. I genuinely like that. Like I said, that kind of lesson is one that I do think needs to be shown in kids shows more often. The ability that yeah, these darker parts of ourselves are always going to be there, but by accepting those parts of ourselves, it can allow us better control over them. And in this case, by accepting his fear, Omi was able to face it head on, knowing that, yeah, he was still afraid of it, but at least it gave him the strength to properly fight this evil of his own creation. And I like that. I think it's a good moral lesson, and it's a good way of actually further expanding the character. So, again, it's good stuff, so I dig it. Well, as for the rest of the episode, well, let's talk about the Shengonwu themselves. The Shadow of Fear, since it's the central focus of the show, is honestly a pretty damn cool and creative Shengonwu. The idea of being able to enter someone else's dreams and literally weaponize their worst fears against them, I think that's actually pretty damn cool and genuinely fucking creepy. The idea of being able to enter someone's mind, learn their darkest secrets, and then use them as a weapon in the real world is so fucked up, and it's in the best way possible. It makes for very entertaining idea. It makes for an entertaining story because everyone's fears are unique, and so by going into their mind and learning what someone is afraid of, it can make for some interesting storytelling as we see whatever their unique fear is, which is exemplified by their own subconscious twisting their perception of whatever it is they're afraid of, and then seeing it go against them. It's creative and fun and makes for some good storytelling, as I've shown. And as for the Crouching Cougar, my thoughts on it are pretty similar to the Silver Manta Ray or the Tunnel Armadillo. It's alright. It's a cool Shengonwu. It's a cool idea of a Shengonwu being a vehicle, but this is the third Shengonwu in a row that's essentially just another vehicle. It's cool in itself, maybe situational, but it's still kind of cool in its own way, so I dig that. Again, if I had to list any flaws of the episode, I guess they could be some minor things, like with Jack Spicer and the Xiaolin monks being able to just easily invade the other's home turfs without any issue, even though the idea is that they're supposed to be under lock and key. And so it makes me just wonder if everybody is just, like, familiar with everyone. It's like, Jack Spicer go to the temple and just, like, say hi to the elder monks as he goes. Do the Xiaolin monks know Jack Spicer's parents? Do they make them milk and cookies on their way out? I don't know. But it's a funny thought to think about, isn't it? And likewise, again, Jack Spicer with this whole movie thing, yeah, you kind of get a little annoyed. You get annoyed. You like Wuya. You kind of get annoyed with the shtick as the episode goes along, and the fact that it does start actively impeding Jack Spicer's competency throughout the episode can be a little annoying. Yeah, it works for the hero's benefit because since Jack Spicer is more concerned with getting good screen time and making a quote unquote good movie, it does impede him enough for the Xiaolin monks to at least turn the tables in their favor at some points. But at the same time, it is just kind of a rather annoying gag that I'm glad does not come back for later episodes. So there you go. My point is, but regardless of all that, it is still a creative episode. I think the moral is really nice. The progression is rather amusing. Progressing is rather fun. The Shenkong with the reveal is nice. The action set pieces are still fun. The showdown was fun and creative. Overall, I do still think it's a good episode that I recommend to anyone who's interested. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. As always, I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope that you tune in next week because, well, it's about time that we met the newest big bad for the series, and well, this one is one to be remembered. So till then, I hope you have a good Friday and take care.